Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Coach Sherri. I'm in my vehicle, so this is car chat and all that. Hope you all are having a great day so far. Today is Monday, September 30th, the last Monday of September of 2024. Tomorrow starts the best month of the year, which is October, my birthday month. And so I'm excited for that. I just can't believe it's here so quickly, right? So, I'm sitting here and I was thinking there's so much that I want to talk about with you, but I really want everyone to please keep the city of Asheville, North Carolina in your prayers. Something so devastating happened there due to the hurricane, tornado, cyclone Helena. Helena did some damage last week. What? Oh my goodness. And, the interesting thing is a few weeks ago, about a month now, a couple of people from Asheville came to Charlotte to shadow me and my team. They want to implement what we do here, there. And so 2 people came and they were just so excited. And, they reached back out to me and said, we want to bring more of our team next time. Please let us know what's on your, schedule and everything. And so we've been so busy. And I told them that I would check my calendar over the next month and see, when would be another time that they can come. Well, we never got to that part. And now I'm wondering, how are they doing? I'm going to reach out to them as soon as I get into my office to see, are they okay? Do they need anything? Because Asheville has been devastated by Helene. And they say that it had not had a storm to this magnitude since 1791. And when it happened, in my head, I was like, wow, this is so similar to Katrina. And then here lately, I've heard newscasters saying that Helene, it impacted similar to Katrina, where, okay, it is a storm, it is more than rain, and it is going to cause some damage. But because of Katrina and the levees breaking, because of Helene and the overflow of rivers and waterways, the damage was even beyond the storm itself. It's the aftermath of the storm. And, the impact has been so tremendous on so many people. In the city of Asheville, they've lost so many lives because of it, Water is one of the strongest things, and we really have to respect it. And that's why I'm telling you, when there is a storm, and even if they say, mandatory, suggested mandatory, or suggested evacuation or whatever, adhere to that. That's why on Thursday at 6 a.m., I believe it was Thursday or Friday, I can't remember which day it was, when our alarms woke us up. I know it woke me up, woke my husband up at 6:15 in the morning, talking about a tornado watch until 8 a.m. in our area. Oh yeah, we got everybody up. We going into the closet, because you just can't take it for granted. It might be that time where you're just like, they always do that, when it really hits. So you have to be mindful. But it all really brought me back to when my son was born. My son, he just celebrated his 26th birthday on Wednesday, the 25th of September. Y'all, I have a 26-year-old, my oldest, the first one that changed my name to Mom, was born 26 years ago. And 26 years ago, 2 days after he was born on a Friday. Saturday, they discharged me from the hospital. That Saturday, my husband flew out with his team to Indianapolis to play the Colts, thinking that I was going to be safe in the hospital because a storm was coming. And his mother, who was there to help, when usher our baby in, was in our home, and she was going to come to the hospital to stay with me to be safe, trying to take our dog to the airport. Back then you could fly, you could buy the ticket, not fly, but then, send the animal. And my parents are going to meet him in New Jersey. She couldn't make it to the airport, ended up bringing our dog to the hospital and left him in the car and was going to go back and forth, in the parking deck. But when she came to pick me up, or not to pick me up, but to stay with me, that evening, the day after my son was born, I was packing up, crying, preparing to leave, because they were discharging me, saying since I did so well, they needed the bed, they needed my room, because storms, the storms, they bring down your baby. And so women that were 8 months and above had to come to the hospital in case they went into labor. And I didn't know what we were going to do. We were in New Orleans, Louisiana, so far from where I'm from. My mother and my father-in-law, they lived in New York. My parents lived in New Jersey. You know, what's going on? I have this newborn baby. Then I get to the parking deck with my mother-in-law, and our dog is sitting shotgun. And I'm like, you have the dog with you? You know, and then that's when she told me about that whole thing. And, you know, we get home, it's like 8 o'clock at night because it was so much traffic. All of the friends I had there, the other wives, when I called to let them know that I had the baby and if they were going to come to the hospital, they were like, no, girl, we going to Atlanta. We going to Houston. And I'm like, why? What's going on? And they said the big storm is coming. But I'm thinking I'm safe in the hospital. So now all the people I know or were close with, they're gone. And so we get back to our home, which is a ranch right across from Lake Pontchartrain. And which you had to walk up to because, you know, the New Orleans is down, it's below sea level. And our neighbors, I don't know how, but for some reason, 3 of our neighbors came over to see what was going on because they knew that my husband had left, you know, to go. And that's the thing. We always had great neighbors wherever we lived because they would look out for me, especially knowing that, you know, in the summer, my husband would be gone for a while for camp. And then they knew he was gone for games. And for some reason, we always kind of lived near a retired player. So, you know, they definitely understood the schedule. And, so 3 neighbors came by. One of them, they asked what we were going to do because our neighborhood was not a mandatory evacuation, but a highly suggested, recommended evacuation. I noticed coming into the neighborhood that people had already started boarding up their windows and such. And I just, you know, from where I'm from in New Jersey, that just don't happen. So it was all brand new to me, as well as for my mother-in-law. We just were like, what in the world are we going to do? Now, the closest friend I had, to New Orleans was in Atlanta, and I asked, you know, could we come, which was a 7-hour drive just on a regular. Who knew how long it would have taken to drive during that storm, you know, from New Orleans? But that was the closest friend, relative, whatever person that cared or knew me was. So that was our only option at the time, and that was what we were planning on doing. But my neighbors came by, and one of them, and he was retired from the Saints as well, and he and his wife were like, well, y'all can come with us. We're going to Beaufort to our family. And wherever we went, I said I have to take my dog. And they were like, well, we're not sure if your dog will be able to come, though. I mean, he may be, but I don't know. You know, it was all that. So I was like, I can't do that. My neighbor next door, who had a 2-story house, was like, oh, you can stay upstairs in our house. And I said, well, where are you going to be? They said, oh, well, we're leaving. I'm like, why would I want to stay upstairs in your house? No, thank you. And then my neighbor across the street, she had just built her home, her dream home. And she was like, we're not leaving. And that just didn't sit right with me either. So I called the team chaplain. It was about 9-10 o'clock that night. I called the team chaplain to let him know. I didn't know where else to turn. And I said, you know, I had the baby because my son was a week early. And I said, I had the baby and everyone's gone and the guys flew out today. And my husband thinks I'm still at the hospital. And, you know, this is before cell phones were a big deal or a thing. And I knew he was going to be in meetings and stuff like that. So, I had to just figure it out. And he said, well, I'm getting ready to take some wives to the Superdome right now. If you can be ready about 11 and I can come by and you can follow us. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I don't know if I could be ready. I just got home and I'm trying to put my things up and grab and, you know, gather my documents and valuables and, you know, just different things. And he said, okay, I'm gonna come back through around 6 a.m. If you could be ready then, you know, I'll come through because the storm is not supposed to come until later tomorrow. So I was like, all right, I could be ready in the morning. So The next morning, now mind you, my son was born Friday. Now this is Sunday. I'm walking our dog. Behind our home, there was a park, and I'm walking my dog behind our home in the park. And it was so calm. It was so calm. It was like a movie set. Not even a leaf was stirring. It was gray. It wasn't sunny. It was a very gray day, but it was just the purest gray. And no, you could tell hardly anyone was in their homes. Nothing was stirring at all. And as I'm walking my dog, I see the caravan of cars, and that was the team chaplain and some other wives, and they were all driving to our home. My mother-in-law was in the house with the baby and gathering our perishable foods. So we packed up the car with our perishable foods. We had a pack and play bassinet kind of thing. That's the only thing we had, for my son. All the diapers I could find, dog food, a blow up mattress for my mother-in-law and I. We didn't know what the situation was going to be. And our car was packed. And we ended up, we get out and everyone is there. The other wives just couldn't believe I had the baby and was doing this. And so we get to the Superdome and we park underneath. They have the parking deck underneath the dome, and that's where we usually park during the games. And so we get out and there's what's it called, National Guard there, and they are at the door, like at the entrance to where we would go in. And we go in, they ride up on the elevator with us to the suites. And when we get out the elevator of the suites, now my mother-in-law they took her and some other people that had maybe cats and dogs too downstairs to the locker rooms. That's where the animals were kept. And then later on, after she got my dog settled down there, then they brought her up to where I was. But when I got off the elevator on the floor where the suites are, y'all, it was like a college dorm. I was like, what is going on here? It was, it was wives. They had, you would have thought it was a college dorm. They had shorts, t-shirts on. They were in the hallway. Their suites were open, the doors. They were talking. Music was playing. There were kids all over. It was mayhem. It was a lot going on. I was like, what in the world? And we each had our own suite. And so the suites are where maybe companies have suites during the games. If you ever go to the Superdome, you can see them. They have glass to overlook the field. And they have sofas in there, mini kitchens, and telephones. So we were able to use a telephone. I was able to call my parents, our families, my father-in-law, just to let them know that we were in a safe place. And then my mother-in-law came up and, we blew up the air mattress. But the thing is, it was so cold in there. It was like 65 degrees. And that's because, during the game, it's thousands of people in there and they have to keep the air at a certain level. And even though it wasn't a game, they still had it at that certain level. So it was so cold, trying to keep my son warm. And it was the craziest thing. So they fed us good though. We had our food, but they cooked for us jambalaya, etouffee. I mean, it was really good food. My dog was in Mike Ditka's locker room. They kept him separate from the other dogs because he was a boxer and they thought he might be vicious, although the other dogs would probably be more vicious towards him, but he had his own space. So my mother-in-law periodically would go down there to check on him. And she said he tore that locker room up. I was like, oh my goodness. But, couldn't worry about that. And then eventually, as the day went on, they started letting the general public in, but they didn't have access to where we were. And we could see them down on the field, like, wow, And I felt so fortunate because we were in a more comfortable space. They didn't have all the things that we had, and they were in a more open area. And then somehow some of them were able at one point to get up to the seats that were close to the suites. And they were like, hey, how'd y'all get up there? Blah, blah. And then the National Guard came to, bring them down. And it wasn't until because we watched the game in, there as a whole. There was like a common area, and they had TVs and stuff, and all the wives and kids and stuff. We were in there watching the game, and after the game, a reporter came and was like, can I interview you? Because what does your husband think about you being here? And at that time, I didn't think he even knew. But after the game, a reporter went to my husband as well and said, how do you feel about your wife being at the Superdome with your newborn baby? He was like, what? And so it was just a mess. It was on and popping from there. But I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing an interview with you without my husband. If you want to interview both of us, after this, when we're settled, I can share my experience. But right now, I don't want to do that. I mean, listen, I just had my baby Friday. It's Sunday still. Y'all, we did not leave until Tuesday. So it was a lot of wind. Thank God it was not Katrina-ish. It was before Katrina. But I believe because of how it was for us, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't the greatest. I believe that's why when Katrina came, the Saints flew out the families. They flew them somewhere. I can't remember where, but they did not let them come to the Superdome. They flew them. So I definitely feel like, in terms of change and being a trailblazer in that way, experiencing that, they recognized that wasn't necessarily the best situation. And, and I'm grateful because Katrina was far worse. And when Katrina happened, all I could think about were the women that just had a baby, and what they were going through. I mean, y'all, to not have access to things, it was just a lot. I mean, there's so much more even to that. Even on our way home, driving back, it was a challenge. And that's for a whole nother day. And I probably mentioned it before, but I just don't feel like getting into it right now. But it was just ironic to me how my son's birthday was on Wednesday, just like, he was born on a Friday, and how all that devastation really started happening on that Friday, which was 2 days after his birthday, which 2 days after his birthday when he was born, we were at the Superdome. And so for me, it was ironic, but it was also deja vu. And again, even with Asheville and what they're going through, I'm sorry, there's a car that's trying to back in next to me, and they mighty close to my vehicle. But thinking about Asheville, I'm thinking about the women that may have just had a baby, and the uncertainties, the challenges that they may be going through, the fear that they must have, especially the new moms. Even if they're not a new mother, they're new to that baby. Each birth, each baby is different. And so I am just praying for Asheville that all the things that they need, the necessities, the essentials in life, water, running water, clean water, electricity, power, all of that is restored, and that the help that they need will be received. All right, and given. So that's all I have for you today. Looking at that driver. Why? I mean, if y'all could see all these parks that are here, and he's squeezed in next to me, and he's still trying to get it together. But everyone, remember, practice every day. Practice so hard that when you get in, you will get in and win. Play your best at all times. You never know who's watching. Real people are watching what you're doing. So take heed to that. All right. Until next time, I am Coach Sherri.